So how should the workers then react to the medium-term budget policy statement? Let's get a sense. Zanele, Sabela, COSATU national spokesperson, will be joining us for this conversation. But for now, we've got SAFTU's General Secretary, Zwelinzima Vavi, on the line. A very good evening to you, Mr. Vavi, and thank you so much for your time. So you say, and I quote, the Minister of Finance is once again reading from the DA economic playbook. Why?
Because the framework that he announced today is exactly the same as being announced since the government of national unity, as well as since 30 years of democracy. Nothing has changed. They are still following exactly the same policy that the DA leader calls the DA economic playbook, and is perfectly correct in analyzing it in those terms. This is their policies that are being advanced. This is the policy that is misleading people to believe that their issues and their demands will be addressed when the opposite is happening. This is a budget that says we will not structure the colonial apartheid structure we inherited from the apartheid that is based on extraction of our minerals and sending them raw overseas without being beneficiated and without building secondary industries in South Africa, and without even asking for greater levels of taxes to those who are rushing the minerals to the nearest harbor. And this is the economy that is based on external orientation. This is not about building local industry at a time when our manufacturing sector is bleeding every day to the point that we now only have 9% of the people being employed in the manufacturing sector.
So Zanele, for you, as COSATU, what is your reaction then to the new inflation target?
We see it. It's been spoken about for a while, but we are worried that what it will actually do is it will discourage the Reserve Bank from actually giving us the relief that we need in terms of the repo rate. So we won't see those interest rate reductions that we've seen of late that are very needed by workers and everyone else for that matter, because then when we get those interest rate relief, then it makes life easier. I mean, a few rands are actually, you're able to spend it on food, you're able to spend it on medicine for the family. And so now we'll see less and less of that, and which is a real problem for us.
So, Zanele, staying with that though, the Reserve Bank governor says that they are taking the target closer to where their peers are.
To where their peers are, we'll get to see. I suppose we'll get to see what that means and how that is actually, how it actually works. But when we talk about peers, who exactly are we referring to? I mean, the problems that we have in this country, can we say that us being the most unequal country in the world, with the poverty that we have in this country and the very high unemployment rate that we have? Like you said, there's been a slight decrease in the unemployment rate, but that is very slight. We're still sitting with 42.4% unemployment rate in this country. And what we haven't seen with this budget is, like Mr. Vavi says, it's the same playbook in that we are still worried about debt. We are still worried about not spending as much, cutting spending. We are just not doing what needs to be done to make sure that this economy grows at the 3% growth that will give us the jobs that we need in this country. And so in terms of that, we are really disappointed. But then there are some things that we do need to applaud. The fact that we've seen how Eskom is slowly on the recovery path. What is being done with Transnet is really important, because Transnet, when it works effectively, it supports those sectors, including mining, agriculture, and manufacturing, because transporting goods by road is really expensive, not just for the companies that do it, but then also for the rest of us, in terms of the state of the roads and the accidents that happen happen on the road. And so also with Metro Rail is heavily subsidized, and therefore workers are able to go to work and come back at a much cheaper price than they normally would if they were using other modes of transport.
So, Mr. Vavi, then, with an economy that's really, still struggling, especially when you look at the fact that we're looking at the forecast, for example, when it comes to real GDP growth averaging 1.8%, this is between 2026 and 28, and a country like ours that so desperately need jobs. Does it look like there's a plan, from what you're hearing, in order to be able to deal with this crisis?
No, we are planning for a long-term stagnation of the economy. 1.2% is ridiculously very low for a country that has 42% unemployment, that has 62% of its population living below the upper poverty level of 1,558 rands. That has become the most unequal society in the whole world. And with that crisis of black unemployment in particular, you have a growth target of 1.6%. Then you have a growth target of 1.8% for the year 2026 to 2028. How ridiculous you can be. Every economist, including the conservative, are saying South Africa needs at least a 5 to 6% GDP growth for us to begin to break the backbone of unemployment in the country. There you have a government for 10 years now with a GDP growth of that is moving from recession to 0.1%, 0.2%. When are we going to rebuild an economy and do away with the colonial apartheid structure and begin to industrialize using our land, using our mineral wealth as a nation before it is depleted and taken out of the country by a few that are currently benefiting from the current export-orientated economic structure?
So, Zanele, for you as COSATU, right, you're saying that, I was reading your statement earlier on, that while there are some wins, you are concerned as an organization that, there isn't a substantial allocation of resources when it comes to municipalities so they can provide quality services to the people. But one would ask, if you look at the AG's reports, is it about these allocations? Is the problem the allocations, or is the problem the financial management?
The problem is also the financing model. The financing model also needs to be looked at and needs to be changed, because where we are sitting, it isn't working. And also the people that bear the brunt are the workers themselves, the workers at the municipality, and that often they find themselves unpaid. They're not paid their salaries, their pension funds are not paid, and that's a recipe for disaster. The other thing that we would like to see is the UIF receiving some support in terms of modernizing it and making sure that the holes that are there in terms of corruption are plugged. What we are proposing as COSATU is that there needs to be an actual board of the UIF to make sure that the workers there are, they're not reporting directly to the minister. The minister and the DG need to be taken away from there. There needs to be a board, and there needs to be a CEO that directly reports to the board to make sure that it comes clean. It's really critical, not just for the workers who have lost their jobs, but then to support companies who find themselves in dire straits. And when companies tend to have this knee-jerk reaction, whenever they find themselves that their profit has dipped, they want to retrench workers. And so in terms of the TES, the temporary relief scheme, they're able then to get the TES to pay workers while they fix whatever else is wrong with their finances.
Briefly, Mr. Vavi, before I let you go, collecting revenue and also meeting targets is one thing, right? But how you spend that money is crucial.
Absolutely. That's the only thing, Comrade Zanele, we felt positive about from the budget, is that the Treasury gave SARS a 4 billion rands, and now there's a new revenue of 19.5 billion, clearly because of the increased levels of efficiency by SARS. That's positive. But then the overall picture, even then, is negative. There's no talk about solidarity wealth tax. There is no talk about undoing the massive decreases in corporate taxes. No talk about illicit cash outflows that make South Africa to lose up to 400 billion rands every year. No talks about implementing the Dennis Davis tax commission that talks about extended tax dodging schemes of corporates in South Africa. No talk about a real redistribution of wealth from the rich to the poor. Yes, 4 billion rands and 19.5 billion rands the minister is celebrating, but where is a redistribution strategy to address the current levels of poverty? In our country, we're losing 10,000 children to malnutrition every year. How could you have a country with so much riches and yet so much poverty facing the majority of our people?
Let me thank you both for your time. Appreciate it. That was Zanele, Sabela, COSATU National Spokesperson and SAFTU General Secretary Zwelinzima, Vavi.